Really? What
Well,
sort of work?
dull, useful, delightful things. Factory acts, female inspectors, the 8 hours bill, the parliamentary franchise, everything, in fact, that you would find thoroughly uninteresting.
And never bonnets?
Never bonnets, never.
Lady Chiltern goes out through the door leading to her boudoir.
You have been a good friend to me, Arthur. A thoroughly good friend.
I don't know that I've been able to do much for you, Robert, as yet. In fact, I've not been able to do anything for you as far as I can see. I am thoroughly disappointed with myself.
You have enabled me to tell you the truth. That is something. The truth has always stifled me.
Ah, the truth is a thing I get rid of as soon as possible. Bad habit, by the way. Makes one very unpopular at the club with the older members. They call it being conceited. Perhaps it is.
I would to God that I had been able to tell the truth, to live the truth. Ah, it is the great thing in life to live the truth. I'll see you again soon, Arthur, shan't I?
Certainly, whenever you like. I'm going to look in at the bachelor's ball tonight, unless I find something better to do. But I'll come round tomorrow morning. If you should want me tonight by any chance, send round a note to Curzon Street.
Thank you.
As he reaches the door, Lady Chiltern enters from her boudoir.
You're not going, Robert.
I have some letters to write, dear.
You work too hard, Robert. You never seem to think of yourself. You are looking so tired.
It's nothing, dear. Nothing.
He kisses her and goes out.
Do sit down. I'm so glad you have called. I want to talk to you about, well, not about bonnets or the Women's Liberal Association. You take far too much interest in the first subject and not nearly enough in the second.
You want to talk to me about Mrs. Cheveley?
Yes, you have guessed it. After you left last night, I found out that what she had said was really true. Of course, I made Robert write her a letter at once, withdrawing his promise.
So he gave me to understand.
To have kept it would have been the first stain on a career that has been stainless always. Robert must be above reproach. He is not like other men. He cannot afford to do what other men do. Don't you agree with me? You are Robert's greatest friend. You are our greatest friend, Lord Goring. No one except myself knows Robert better than you do. He has no secrets from me, and I don't think he has any from you.
He certainly has no secrets from me. At least, I don't think so.
Then am I not right in my estimate of him? I know I am right, but speak to me frankly.
Quite frankly?
Surely, you have nothing to conceal, have you?
Nothing, but my dear Lady Chiltern, I think, if you will allow me to say so, that in practical life,
Of which you know so little, Lord Goring.
of which I know nothing by experience, though I know something by observation, I think that in practical life there is something about success, actual success, that is a little unscrupulous. Something about ambition that is unscrupulous always. Once a man has set his heart and soul on getting to a certain point, if he has to climb the crag, he climbs the crag. If he has to walk in the mire,
Well,
he walks in the mire. Of course, I'm only talking generally about life.
I hope so. Why do you look at me so strangely, Lord Goring?
Lady Chiltern, I have sometimes thought that perhaps you are a little hard in some of your views on life. I think that often you don't make sufficient allowances. In every nature, there are elements of weakness, or worse than weakness. Supposing, for instance, that any public man, my father, or Lord Merton, or Robert, say, had years ago written some foolish letter to someone,
What do you mean by a foolish letter?
a letter gravely compromising one's position. I'm only putting an imaginary case.
Robert is as incapable of doing a foolish thing as he is of doing a wrong thing.
Nobody is incapable of doing a foolish thing. Nobody is incapable of doing a wrong thing.
Are you a pessimist? What will the other dandies say? They will all have to go into mourning.
No, Lady Chiltern, I'm not a pessimist. Indeed, I'm not sure that I quite know what pessimism really means. All I do know is that life cannot be understood without much charity, cannot be lived without much charity. It is love and not German philosophy that is the true explanation of this world, whatever may be the explanation of the next. And if you are ever in trouble, Lady Chiltern, trust me absolutely, and I will help you in every way I can. If you ever want me, come to me for my assistance, and you shall have it. Come at once to me.
Lord Goring, you are talking quite seriously. I don't think I ever heard you talk seriously before.
You must excuse me, Lady Chiltern. It won't occur again if I can help it.
But I like you to be serious.
Enter Mabel Chiltern in the most ravishing frock.
Dear Gertrude, don't say such a dreadful thing to Lord Goring. Seriousness would be very unbecoming to him. Good afternoon, Lord Goring. Pray be as trivial as you can.
I should like to, Miss Mabel, but I'm afraid I am a little out of practice this morning, and besides, I have to be going now.
Just when I have come in. What dreadful manners you have. I'm sure you were very badly brought up.
I was.
I wish I had brought you up.
I'm so sorry you didn't.
It's too late now, I suppose.
I am not so sure.
Will you ride tomorrow morning?
Yes, at 10.
Don't forget.
Of course I shan't. By the way, Lady Chiltern, there's no list of your guests in the Morning Post today. It has apparently been crowded out by the County Council or the Lambeth Conference or something equally boring. Could you let me have a list? I have a particular reason for asking you.
I'm sure Mr. Trafford will be able to give you one.
Thanks so much.
Tommy is the most useful person in London.
And who's the most ornamental?
I am.
How clever of you to guess it. Goodbye, Lady Chiltern. You will remember what I said to you, won't you?
Yes, but I don't know why you said it to me.
I hardly know myself. Goodbye, Miss Mabel.
I wish you were not going. I have had 4 wonderful adventures this morning. 4.5, in fact. You might stop and listen to some of them.
How very selfish of you to have 4.5. There won't be any left for me.
I don't want you to have any. They would not be good for you.
That is the first unkind thing you have ever said to me. How charmingly you said it. 10 tomorrow?
Sharp.
Quite sharp. But don't bring Mr. Trafford.
Of course I shan't bring Tommy Trafford. Tommy Trafford is in great disgrace.
I am delighted to hear it.
Gertrude, I wish you would speak to Tommy Trafford.
What has poor Mr. Trafford done this time? Robert says he's the best secretary he has ever had.
Well, Tommy has proposed to me again. Tommy really does nothing but propose to me. He proposed to me last night in the music room when I was quite unprotected as there was an elaborate trio going on. I didn't dare to make the smallest repartee, I hardly need tell you. If I had, it would have stopped the music at once. Musical people are so absurdly unreasonable. They always want one to be perfectly dumb at the very moment when one is longing to be absolutely deaf. Then he proposed to me in broad daylight this morning, in front of that dreadful statue of Achilles. Really, the things that go on in front of that work of art are quite appalling. The police should interfere. At luncheon, I saw by the glare in his eye that he was going to propose again, and I managed to just check him in time by assuring him that I was a bimetallist. Fortunately, I don't know what bimetallism means, and I don't believe anybody else does either, but the observation crushed Tommy for 10 minutes. He looked quite shocked. And then Tommy is so annoying in the way he proposes. If he proposed at the top of his voice, I should not mind so much. That might produce some effect on the public. But he does it in a horrid, confidential way. When Tommy wants to be romantic, he talks to one just like a doctor. I am very fond of Tommy, but his methods of proposing are quite out of date. I wish, Gertrude, you would speak to him and tell him that once a week is quite often enough to propose to anyone, and that it should always be done in a manner that attracts some attention. Oh, I wouldn't marry a man with a future before him for anything under the sun. I know, dear. You married a man with a future, didn't you? But then Robert was a genius, and you have such a noble, self sacrificing character. You can stand geniuses. I have no character at all, and Robert is the only genius I could ever bear. As a rule, I think they are quite impossible. Geniuses talk so much, don't they? It's such a bad habit. And they're always thinking about themselves when I want them to be thinking about me. I must go round now and rehearse at Lady Basildon's. You remember, we are having tableau, don't you? The triumph of something. I don't know what. I hope it will be triumph of me. Only triumph I am really interested in at the present. Oh, Gertrude, do you know who is coming to see you? That dreadful Mrs. Cheveley in a most lovely gown. Did you ask her?
Mrs. Cheveley, coming to see me? Impossible.
I assure you, she is coming upstairs, as large as life and not nearly so natural.
You need not wait, Mabel. Remember, Lady Basildon is expecting you.
Oh, I must shake hands with Lady Markby. She is delightful. I love being scolded by her.
Enter Mason.
Lady Markby, Mrs. Cheveley.
Enter Lady Markby and Mrs. Cheveley.
Dear Lady Markby, how nice of you to come and see me. Won't you sit down, Mrs. Cheveley?
Thanks. Isn't that Miss Chiltern? I should like so much to know her.
Mabel, Mrs. Cheveley wishes to know you.
Mabel Chiltern gives a little nod. But your frock was so charming last night, Miss Chiltern. So simple and suitable.
Really? I must tell my dressmaker. It will be such a surprise for her. Goodbye, Lady Markby.
Going already?
I am so sorry, but I am obliged to. I am just off to rehearsal. I have got to stand on my head in some tableau.
On your head, child? Oh, I hope not. I believe it is most unhealthy.
But it is for an excellent charity, in aid of the undeserving, the only people I am really interested in. I am the secretary, and Tommy Trafford is treasurer.
And what is Lord Goring?
Oh, Lord Goring is president.
Post should suit him admirably, unless he has deteriorated since I knew him first.
You are remarkably modern, Mabel. A little too modern, perhaps. Nothing is so dangerous as being too modern. One is apt to grow old-fashioned quite suddenly. I have known many instances of it.
What a dreadful prospect.
Ah, my dear, you need not be nervous. You will always be as pretty as possible. That is the best fashion there is, and the only fashion that England succeeds in setting.
Thank you so much, Lady Markby, for England and myself.
Dear Gertrude, we just called to know if Mrs. Cheveley's diamond brooch has been found.
Here. Here?
Yes, I missed it when I got back to Claridge's, and I thought I might possibly have dropped it here.
I have heard nothing about it, but I will send for the butler and ask.
Oh, pray don't trouble Lady Chiltern. I
Wonder we have anything at all left on us at the end of an evening. I know myself that when I'm coming back from the drawing room, I always feel as if I hadn't a shred on me, except a small shred of decent reputation, just enough to prevent the lower classes from making painful observations through the windows of the carriage. The fact is that our society is terribly overpopulated. Really, someone should arrange a proper scheme of assisted emigration. It would do a great deal of good.
I quite agree with you, Lady Markby. It's nearly 6 years since I've been in London for the season, and I must say, society has become dreadfully mixed. One sees the oddest people everywhere.
That is quite true, but one needn't know them. I'm sure I don't know half the people who come to my house. Indeed, from all I hear, I shouldn't like to.
Enter Mason.
What sort of a brooch was it that you lost, Mrs. Cheverly?
A diamond snake brooch with a ruby, a rather large ruby.
I thought you said there was a sapphire on the head, dear.
No, Lady Markby, a ruby.
And very becoming, I am quite sure.
Has a ruby and diamond brooch been found in any of the rooms this morning, Mason?
No, my lady.
It really is of no consequence, Lady Chilton. I'm so sorry to have put you at any inconvenience.
It has been no inconvenience. That will do, Mason. You can bring tea.
Well,
Exit Mason.
well, I must say it is most annoying to lose anything. I remember once at Bath years ago losing in the pump room an exceedingly handsome cameo bracelet that Sir John had given me. I don't think he has ever given me anything since, I'm sorry to say. He has sadly degenerated. Really, this horrid House of Commons quite ruins our husbands for us. I think the lower house by far the greatest blow to a happy married life that there has been since the terrible thing called the higher education of woman was invented.
Ah, it is heresy to say that in this house, Lady Markby. Robert is a great champion of the higher education of women, and so I am afraid am I.
But sadly,
They do, dear. But I'm afraid such a scheme would be quite unpractical. I don't think man has much capacity for development. He's got as far as he can, and that is not far, is it? With regard to women, well, dear Gertrude, you belong to the younger generation, and I am sure it is all right if you approve of it. With regard, in my time, of course, we were taught not to understand anything. That was the old system, and wonderfully interesting it was. I assure you that the amount of things I and my poor dear sister were taught not to understand was quite extraordinary. But modern women understand everything, I am told.
except their husbands. That is one thing the modern woman never understands.
And a very good thing, too, dear, I dare say. It might break up many a happy home if they did. Not yours, I need hardly say, Gertrude. You have married a pattern husband. I wish I could say as much for myself, but since Sir John has taken to attending the debates regularly, which he never used to do in the good old days, his language has become quite impossible. He always seems to think that he is addressing the House, and consequently, whenever he discusses the state of the agricultural labourer, or the Welsh Church, or something quite improper of that kind, I am obliged to send all of the servants out of the room. It is not pleasant to see one's own butler, who has been with one for 23 years, actually blushing at the sideboard, and the footmen making contortions in corners like persons in circuses. I assure you, my life will be quite ruined unless they send John at once to the upper house. He won't take any interest in politics then, will he? The House of Lords is so sensible, an assembly of gentlemen. But in his present state, Sir John is really a great trial. Why, this morning, before breakfast was half over, he stood up on the hearthrug, put his hands in his pockets, and appealed to the country at the top of his voice. I left the table as soon as I had had my second cup of tea, I need hardly say, but his violent language could be heard all over the house. I trust, Gertrude, that Sir Robert is not like that.
But I am very much interested in. But I am very much interested in politics, Lady Marksby. I love to hear Robert talk about them.
Well, I hope he is not as devoted to blue books as Sir John is. I don't think they can be quite improving reading for anyone.
I've never read a blue book. And yellow covers.
Oh, yellow is a gayer colour, is it not? I used to wear yellow a good deal in my early days, and would do so now if Sir John was not so painfully personal in his observations. And a man on the question of dress is always ridiculous, is he not?
Oh no, I think men are the only authorities on dress.
Really? One wouldn't say so from the sort of hats they wear, would one?
The butler enters, followed by the footman. He is set on a small table close to Lady Chiltern.
May I give you some tea, Mrs. Cheverly?
Thanks.
Some tea, Lady Markby?
No, thanks, dear. The fact is, I have promised to go round for 10 minutes to see poor Lady Brancaster, who is in very great trouble. Her daughter, quite a well-brought-up girl, too, has actually become engaged to be married to a curate in Shropshire. It is very sad indeed. I can't understand this modern mania for curates. In my time, we girls saw them, of course, running about the place like rabbits, but we never took any notice of them, I need hardly say. But I am told that nowadays country society is quite honeycombed with them. I think it most irreligious. And then the eldest son has quarrelled with his father, and it is said that when they meet at the club, Lord Brancaster always hides himself behind the money article in the Times. However, I believe that is quite a common occurrence nowadays, and they have to take extra copies of the Times at all the think myself it is very much to be regretted.
So do I. Fathers have so much to learn from their sons nowadays.
Really, dear? What?
The art of living. The only really fine art we have produced on modern times.
Ah, I am afraid Lord Brancaster knew a good deal about that. More than his poor wife ever did. You know Lady Brancaster, don't you, dear?
Just slightly. She was staying at Langton last autumn when we were there.
Well, like all stout women, she looks the very picture of happiness, as no doubt you noticed. But there are many tragedies in her family besides this affair of the curate. Her own sister, Mrs. Jekyll, had a most unhappy life, through no fault of her own, I am sorry to say. She ultimately was so broken-hearted that she went into a convent, or onto the operatic stage, I forget which. No, I think it was decorative art needlework she took up. I know she had lost all sense of pleasure in life. And now, Gertrude, if you will allow me, I shall leave Mrs. Cheverly in your charge and call her back. call back for her in a quarter of an hour. Or perhaps, dear Mrs. Cheverly, you wouldn't mind waiting in the carriage while I'm with Lady Brancaster. As I intend it to be a visit of condolence, I shan't stay long.
I don't mind waiting in the carriage at all, provided there is somebody to look at one.
Well, I hear the curate is always prowling about the house.
I'm afraid I'm not a friend of. I'm afraid I'm not fond of girl friends.
Oh, I hope Mrs. Cheverly will stay here a while. I should like to have a few minutes' conversation with her.
Oh, very kind of you, Lady Chiltern. Nothing would give me greater pleasure.
Ah, no doubt you both have many pleasant reminiscences of your school days to talk over together. Goodbye, dear Gertrude. Shall I see you at Lady Bernard's tonight? She has discovered a wonderful new genius. He does nothing at all, I believe. That is a great comfort, is it not?
Robert and I are dining at home by ourselves tonight, and I don't think I shall go anywhere afterwards. Robert, of course, will have to be in the house, but there is nothing interesting on.
Dining at home by yourselves? Is that quite prudent? Ah, I forgot. Your husband is an exception. Mine is the general rule, and nothing ages a woman so rapidly as having married the general rule.
Exit, Lady Markby. Wonderful woman, Lady Markby, isn't she? Talks more and says less than anybody I ever met. She is made to be a public speaker, much more so than her husband, though he is a typical Englishman, always dull and usually violent.
Hmm. Mrs. Cheverly, I think it is right to tell you quite frankly that, had I known who you really were, I should not have invited you to my house last
Really?
night. I could not have done so.
I see that after all these years you've Gertrude.
I never change.
And life has taught you nothing?
It has taught me that a person who has once been guilty of a dishonest and dishonorable action may be guilty of it a second time and should be shunned.
Would you apply that rule to everyone?
Yes, to everyone, without exception.
And I am very sorry for you, Gertrude. Very sorry for you.
You see now, I was sure that for many reasons, any further acquaintance between us during your stay in London is quite impossible.
Do you know the attitude we adopt towards people whom we personally dislike? You dislike me. I'm quite aware of that.
Hmm.
And I've always detested you. And yet I've come here to do you a service.
Like the service you wished to render my husband last night, I suppose. Thank heaven I saved him from that.
It was you who made them write that insolent letter to me. It was you who made him break his promise.
Yes.
Then you must make him keep it. I give you till tomorrow morning, no more. If by that time your husband does not solemnly bind himself to help me in this great scheme in which I am interested,
This fraudulent speculation.
call it what you choose. I hold your husband in the hollow of my hand, and if you are wise, you will make him do what I tell him.
You are impertinent. What has my husband to do with you? with a woman like you.
In this world, like, it is because your husband himself is fraudulent and dishonest that we pair so well together. Between you and him, there are chasms. He and I are closer than friends. We are enemies linked together. The same sin binds us.
How dare you class your husband with yourself? How dare you threaten him or me? Leave my house. You are unfit to enter it.
Robert Chilton enters from behind. He hears his wife's last words and sees to whom they are addressed. He grows deadly pale. Our house, a house bought with the price of dishonor, a house everything in which has been paid for in fraud. Ask him the origin of his fortune. Get him to tell you how he sold to a stockbroker a cabinet secret. Learn from him to what you owe your position.
It is not true. Robert, it is not true.
Look at him. Can he deny it? Does he dare to?
Go. Go at once. You've done your worst now.
My worst. I have not yet finished with either of you. I give you both till tomorrow at noon. If by then you can't do what I bid you to do, the whole world shall know the origin of Robert Chilton. Sir Robert Chilton rings the bell. Enter Mason.
Show Mrs. Cheverly out.
Mrs. Cheverly starts and bows with somewhat exaggerated politeness to Lady Chiltern, who makes no sign of response. As she passes by Sir Robert Chiltern, who is standing close to the door, she pauses for a moment and looks him straight in the face. Then she goes out, followed by the servant, who closes the door after him. The husband and wife are now alone. Lady Chiltern stands like someone in a dreadful dream. Then she turns round and looks at her husband. She looks at him with strange eyes, as though she were seeing him for the first time.
You sold a cabinet secret for money. You began your life with fraud. You built up your career on dishonor. Tell me it's not true. Lie to me. Lie to me. Tell me it's not true.
What this woman said is true. But Gertrude, listen to me. You don't realize how I was tempted. Let me tell you the whole thing.
Don't come near me. Don't touch me. I feel as if you had soiled me forever. What a mask you've been wearing all these years. A horrible painted mask. You sold yourself for money. Common thief or better. You put yourself up for sale to the highest bidder. You were bought in the market. You lied to the whole world. And yet you will not lie to me.
Gertrude.
No! Don't speak. Say nothing. Your voice wakes terrible memories. Memories of things that made me love you. Memories of words that made me love you. Memories that are now horrible to me. And how I worshipped you. You said you were to me something apart from a common life. A thing pure, noble, honest, without strain. The world seemed to me finer because you were in it, and goodness more real because you lived. And now, when I think that I made a man like you my ideal, the ideal of my life.
There was your mistake. There was your error. The error all women commit. Why can't you women love us, faults and all? Why do you place us on monstrous pedestals? We have all feet of clay, women as well as men. But when we men love women, we love them knowing their weaknesses, their follies, their imperfections. Love them all the more, it may be, for that reason. It is not the perfect, but the imperfect who have need of love. It is when we are wounded with our own hands or by the hands of others that love should come to cure us. What else use is love at all? All sins except a sin against itself, love should forgive. All lives save loveless lives, true love should pardon. Man's love is like that. It is wider, larger, more human than a woman's. Women think they are making ideals of men. What they are making us as false idols merely. You should. You made your false idol of me, and I had not the courage to come down, show you my wounds, and tell you my weaknesses. I was afraid that I might lose your love as I have lost it now. And so last night, you ruined my life for me. Yes, ruined it. What this woman asked of me was nothing compared to what she offered me. She offered security, peace, stability. The sin of my youth that I had thought was buried rose up in front of me, hideous, horrible, with its hands at my throat. I could have killed it forever, sent it back to its tomb, destroyed its one witness against me. You prevented me. No one but you. You know it. And now, what is there before me but public disgrace, ruin, terrible shame, mockery of the world, a lonely, dishonored life, lonely, dishonored death it may be someday. Let women make no more ideals of men. Let them not put them on altars and bow before them. They may ruin their lives as completely as you. You who have so wildly loved have ruined mine.
He passes from the room. Lady Chiltern rushes toward him, but the door is closed when she reaches it. Pale with anguish, bewildered, helpless, she sways like a plant in the water. Her hands outstretched seem to tremble in the air like blossoms in the mind. Then she flings herself down beside the sofa and buries her face. Her sobs are like the sobs of a child. Act drop. Third act. Scene. In Lord Goring's house, an Adam room, whatever that is. On the right is the door leading into the hall. On the left, the door of the smoking room. A pair of folding doors at the back open into the drawing room. The fire is lit. Phipps, the butler, is arranging some newspapers on the writing table. The distinction of Phipps is in his impassivity. He has been termed by enthusiasts the ideal butler. The Sphinx is not so incommunicable. He is a mask with a manner. Of his intellectual or emotional life, history knows nothing. He represents the dominance of form. Enter Lord Goring in evening dress with a buttonhole. He is wearing a silk hat and Inverness cape. White-gloved, he carries a Louis XVI cane. His are all the delicate fopperies of fashion. One sees that he stands in immediate relation to modern life, takes it indeed, and so masters it. He is the first well-dressed philosopher in the history of thought.
Got my second buttonhole for me, Phipps?
Yes, my lord.
Rather the distinguished thing, Phipps. I am the only person of the smallest importance in London at present who wears a buttonhole.
Yes, my lord. I have observed that.
You see, Phipps, fashion is what one wears oneself. What is unfashionable is what other people wear.
Yes, my lord.
Just as vulgarity is simply the conduct of other people.
Yes, my lord.
And falsehoods the truths of other people.
Yes, my lord.
Other people are quite dreadful. The only possible society is oneself.
Yes, my lord.
To love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance, Phipps.
Yes, my lord.
Don't think I quite like this buttonhole, Phipps. Makes me look a little too old. Makes me almost in the prime of life, eh, Phipps?
I don't observe any alteration in your lordship's appearance.
You don't, Phipps.
No, my lord.
I am not quite sure. For the future, a more trivial buttonhole, Phipps, on Thursday evenings?
I will speak to the florist, my lord. She has had a loss in her family lately, which perhaps accounts for the lack of triviality your lordship complains of in the buttonhole.
Extraordinary thing about the lower classes in England. They're always losing their relations.
Yes, my lord. They are extremely fortunate in that respect.
Hum. Any letters, Phipps?
3, my lord.
Want my cab round in 20 minutes?
Yes, my lord.
Ahem. Phipps, when did this letter arrive?
It was brought by hand just after your lordship went to the club.
That will do. Lady Chiltern's handwriting on Lady Chiltern's pink notepaper. That is rather curious. I thought Robert was to write. Wonder what Lady Chiltern's got to say to me. I want you. I trust you. I am coming to you. Gertrude. I want you. I trust you. I am coming to you. So she's found out everything. Poor woman. Poor woman. But what an hour to call! 10 o'clock! I shall have to give up going to the Berkshires. However, it is always nice to be expected and not to arrive. I'm not expected at the Bachelor's, so I shall certainly go there. Well, I will make her stand by her husband. That is the only thing for her to do. That is the only thing for any woman to do. It is the growth of the moral sense in women that makes marriage such a hopeless one-sided institution. 10 o'clock, she should be here soon. I must tell Phipps I'm not into anyone else.
Enter Phipps.
Lord Caversham.
Oh, why will parents always appear at the wrong time? Some extraordinary mistake in nature, I suppose. Delighted to see you, my dear father.
Take my cloak off.
Worthwhile, father?
Of course it's worthwhile, sir. Which is the most comfortable chair?
This one, father. It is the chair I use myself when I have visitors.
Thank you. No draught, I hope, in this room?
No, father.
Glad to hear it. Can't stand draughts. No draughts at home.
Good many breezes, father.
Eh? Eh? Don't understand what you mean. Want to have a serious conversation with you, sir.
My dear father, at this hour?
Well, sir, it is only 10 o'clock. What is your objection to the hour? I think the hour is an admirable hour.
Well, the fact is, father, this is not my day for talking seriously. I am very sorry, but it is not my day.
What do you mean, sir?
During the season, father, I only talk seriously on the first Tuesday in every month from 4 to 7.
Well, make it Tuesday, sir. Make it Tuesday.
But it is after 7, father, and my doctor says I must not have any serious conversation after 7. It makes me talk in my...
Talk in your sleep, sir. What does that mean? You are not married?
No, father, I am not married.
That is what I've come to talk to you about, sir. You have got to get married, and at once. Why, when I was your age, sir, I had been an inconsolable widower for 3 months and was already paying my addresses to your admirable mother. Dame, sir, it is your duty to get married. You can't be always living for pleasure. Every man of position is married nowadays. Bachelors are not fashionable anymore. They are damaged. Too much is known about them. You must get a wife, sir. Look Look where your friend Robert Chilton has got by probability, hard work, and sensible marriage with a good woman. Why don't you imitate him, sir? Why don't you take him for your model?
I think I shall, Father.
I wish you would, sir. Then I should be happy. At present, I make your mother's life miserable on your account. You are heartless, sir, quite heartless.
I hope not, Father.
And it is high time for you to get married. You are 34 years of age, sir.
Yes, Father, but I only admit to 32. 31 and a half when I have a really good buttonhole. This buttonhole is not trivial.
I tell you, you are 34, sir. And there is a draught in your room, besides, which makes you conduct worse. Why did you tell me there was no draught, sir? I feel a draught, sir. I feel it distinctly.
So do I, Father. It is a dreadful draught. I will come and see you tomorrow, Father. We can talk over anything you like. Let me help you on with your cloak, Father.
No, sir. I have called this evening for a definitive purpose, and I am going to see it through at all costs to my health or yours. Put down my cloak, sir.
Certainly, Father, but let us go into another room. There is a dreadful draught here. Phipps, is there a good fire in the smoking room?
Yes, my lord.
Come in there, Father. Your sneezes and coughing.
Well, sir, I suppose I have a right to cough when I choose.
Quite so, Father. I was merely expressing sympathy.
Ugh, damn sympathy. There's a great deal too much of that sort of thing going on nowadays.
I quite agree with you, Father. If there was less sympathy in the world, there would be less trouble in the world.
No, that is a paradox, sir. I hate paradoxes.
So do I, Father. Everybody one meets is a paradox nowadays. It's a great bore. It makes society so obvious.
Do you always rarely understand what you say, sir?
Yes, Father, if I listen attentively.
What? If you listen attentively? Conceited young puppy.
Phipps, there's a lady coming to see me this evening on particular business. Show her into the drawing room when she arrives. You understand?
Yes, my lord.
It is a matter of the gravest importance, Phipps.
I understand, my lord.
No one else is to be admitted under any circumstance.
I understand, my lord.
Ah, that is probably the lady. I shall see her myself.
Well, sir, am I to wait attendance on you?
In a moment, Father. Do excuse me. Well, remember my instructions, Phipps. Into that.
Yes, my lord.
Lord Goring goes into the smoking room. Harold, the footman, shows Mrs. Chevalier. Lamia-like, she is in green and silver. She has a cloak of black satin, lined with dead rose leaf silk. Lamia was a creature in myth that ate babies, so it's very fitting.
What name, madam?
Is Lord is Lord Goring not here? I was told he was at home.
His lordship is engaged at present with Lord Caversham, madam.
How very filial.
His lordship told me to ask you, madam, to be kind enough to wait in the drawing room for him. His lordship will come to you there.
Lord Goring expects me.
Yes, madam.
Are you quite sure?
His lordship told me that if a lady called, I was to ask her to wait in the drawing room. His lordship's directions on the subject were very precise.
How thoughtful of him. To expect the unexpected shows a thoroughly modern intellect. Ugh, bachelor's drawing room always looks. I shall have to alter all of this. No, I don't care for that lamp. It's far too glaring. Light some candles.
Certainly, madam.
I hope the candles have very becoming shades.
We've had no complaints about them, madam, as yet.
I wonder what woman he is looking for tonight. It will be delightful to catch him. Men always look so silly when they are caught, and they are always being caught. What a very interesting room. What a very interesting picture. Wonder what his correspondence is like. Oh, what a very uninteresting correspondence. Bills and cards, debts and dowagers. Who on earth writes to him on pink paper? How silly to write on pink paper. It looks like the beginning of a middle-class romance. Romance should never begin with sentiment. It should always begin with science and end with a settlement. Handwriting. That is Gertrude Chiltern's. I remember it perfectly. The 10 Commandments in every stroke of the pen and the moral law all over the page. Wonder what Gertrude is writing to him about. Something horrid about me, I suppose. How I detest that woman. You, I want you. I am coming to you. Gertrude. You, I want you. I'm coming to you.
The candles in the drawing room are lit, madam, as you directed.
Oh, yes, thank you.
I trust the shades will be to your liking, madam. They are the most becoming we have. They are the same as his lordship uses himself when he is dressing for dinner.
I'm sure they will be perfectly right.
Thank you, madam.
Mrs. Chevelry goes into the drawing room, closes the door, and retires. The door is then slowly opened, and Mrs. Cheverly comes out and creeps stealthily towards the writing table, like a creep. Suddenly, voices are heard from the smoking room. Mrs. Cheverly grows pale and stops. Voices grow louder and back into the drawing room, biting her lip.
My dear father, if I am to get married, surely you will allow me to choose the time, place, and person? Particularly the person?
That is a matter for me, sir. You will probably make a very poor choice, and it is I who should be consulted, not you. There is propriety at stake. It is not a matter for affection. Affection comes later on in married life.
Yes, in married life, affection comes when people thoroughly dislike each other, father, doesn't it?
Certainly, sir. I mean, certainly not, sir. You are talking very foolishly tonight. What I say is that marriage is a matter for common sense.
But women who have common sense are so curiously plain, father, aren't they? Of course, I only speak from hearsay.
No woman, plain or pretty, has any common sense at all, sir. Common sense is the privilege of our sex.
Quite so. And we men are so self-sacrificing that we never use it, do we, father?
I use it, sir. I use nothing else.
So my mother tells me.
It is the secret of your mother's happiness. You are very heartless, sir, very heartless.
I hope not, father.
Out with Sir Robert Chiltern.
My dear Arthur, what a piece of good luck meeting you on the doorstep. Your servant had just told me you were not at home. How extraordinary.
The fact is, I'm horribly busy tonight, Robert, and I gave orders I was not at home to anyone. Even my father had a comparatively cold reception. He complained of a draft the whole time.
Ah, you must be at home to me, Arthur. You are my best friend. Perhaps tomorrow you will be my only friend. My wife has discovered everything.
I guessed as much.
Really? How?
Oh, merely by something in the expression of your face as you came in. Who told her?
Mrs. Chevalier herself, and the woman I love, knows that I began my career with an act of low dishonesty, and that I built my life upon the sands of shame, that I sold like a common huckster the secret that had been entrusted to me as a man of honor. I thank heaven for poor Radley died without knowing that I betrayed him. I would to God had died. I would to God I had died before I had been so horribly tempted or fallen so low.
You've heard nothing from Vienna yet in answer to your wire.
Yes, I got a telegram from the first secretary at 8 o'clock tonight.
Well?
Nothing is absolutely known against her. On the contrary, she occupies a rather high position in society. It is a sort of open secret that Baron Arnheim left her the greater portion of his immense fortune. Beyond that, I can learn nothing.
She doesn't turn out to be a spy, then?
Oh, spies are of no use nowadays. Their profession is over. The newspapers do their work instead.
And thunderingly well they do it.
Arthur, I'm parched with thirst. May I ring for something? Some hock and seltzer?
Certainly. Let me.
Thanks. I don't know what to do, Arthur. I don't know what to do, and you are my only friend. What a friend you are. The one friend I can trust. I can trust absolutely, can't I?
Enter Phipps.
My dear Robert, of course. Oh, bring me some Hawkins.
Yes, my lord.
And Phipps.
Yes, my lord.
Will you excuse me for a moment, Robert? I want to give some directions to my servant.
Certainly.
When that lady calls, tell her that I am not expected home this evening. Tell her that I have been suddenly called out of town. You understand?
The lady is in that room, my lord. You told me to show her into that room, my lord.
You did perfectly right. What a mess I am in. No, I think I shall get through it. I'll give her a lecture through the door. Awkward thing to manage.
Arthur, tell me what I should do. My life seems to have crumbled about me. I am a ship without a rudder and a night without a star.
Robert, you love your wife, don't you?
I love her more than anything in the world. I used to think ambition the great thing. It is not. Love is the great thing in the world. There is nothing but love, and I love her. But I am defamed in her eyes. I am ignoble in her eyes. There is a gulf between us now. She has found me out, Arthur. She has found me out.
Has she never in her life done some folly, some indiscretion, that she should not forgive your sin?
My wife? Never. She does not know what weakness or temptation is. I am of clay like other men. She stands apart as good women do, pitiless in her perfection, cold and stern without mercy. But I love her, Arthur. We are childless, and I have no one else to love, no one else to love me. Perhaps if God had sent us children, she might have been kinder to me, but God has given us a lonely house. And she has cut my heart in two. Don't let us talk of it. It was brutal to her this evening. But I suppose when sinners talk to saints, they are brutal always. I said to her things that were hideously true on my side, from my standpoint, from the standpoint of men, but don't let us talk of that.
Your wife will forgive you. Perhaps at this moment she is forgiving you. She loves you, Robert. Why should she not forgive?
God granted. God granted. There's something more I have to tell you, Arthur.
Enter Phipps with drinks.
Hock and seltzer, sir.
Thank you.
Is your carriage here, Robert?
No, I walked from the club.
Sir Robert will take my cab, Phipps.
Yes, my lord.
Robert, you don't mind my sending you away?
Arthur, you must let me stay for 5 minutes. I have made up my mind what I'm going to do tonight in the House. The debate on the Argentine scandal is to begin at 11. What is
Chair
that?
falls in the drawing room.
What is that?
Nothing.
I heard a chair fall in the next room. Someone has been listening.
No, there is no one there.
There is someone. There are lights in the room, and the door is ajar. Someone has been listening to every secret in my life. Arthur, what does this mean?
Robert, you are excited, unnerved. I tell you, there is no one in that room. Sit down, Robert.
You give me your word that there is no one there?
Yes.
Arthur, let me see for myself. Oh, sorry,
No.
your word of honor.
Yes.
Arthur, let me see for myself.
No.
If there was no one there, why should I not look in that room? Arthur, you must let me go into that room and satisfy. Arthur, you must let me go into that room and satisfy myself. Let me know that no eavesdropper has heard my life secret. Arthur, you don't realize what I'm going through.
Robert, this must stop. I have told you that there is no one in that room. That is enough.
It is not enough. I insist on going into this room. You have told me there is no one here, so what reason can you have for refusing me?
For God's sake, don't. There is someone there, someone whom you must not see.
Ah, I thought so.
I forbid you to enter that room.
Stand back. My life is at stake. And I don't care who is there. I will know who it is and whom I have told my secret and my shame.
Great heavens, his own wife.
What explanation have you to give me for the presence of that woman here?
Robert, I swear to you on my honor that that lady is stainless and guiltless of all offense towards you.
She is a vile, infamous thing.
Don't say that, Robert. It was for your sake she came here. It was to try and save you she came here. She loves you and no one else.
You are mad. What have I to do with her that intrigues her? Let her remain your mistress. You are well suited to each other. She is corrupt and shameful. You, false as a friend, treacherous as an enemy even.
It is not true, Robert. Before heaven, it is not true. In her presence and in yours, I will explain all.
Let me pass, sir. You have lied enough upon your word of honor.
Robert Chilton goes out. Lord Goring rushes to the door of the drawing room when Mrs. Cheveley comes out, looking radiant and much amused. Good evening, Lord Goring.
Mrs. Cheveley? Great heavens! May I ask what you were doing in my drawing room?
Merely listening. I have a perfect passion through keyholes, and always hears such wonderful things through them.
Doesn't that sound rather like tempting Providence?
Oh, surely Providence can resist temptation by this time.
I am glad you've called. I'm going to give you some good advice.
Oh, pray you don't. One should never give a woman anything that she can't wear in the evening.
I see you're quite as willful as you used to be.
Far more. I have greatly improved. I've had more experience.
Too much experience is a dangerous thing. Pray, have a cigarette. Half the pretty women in London smoke cigarettes. Personally, I prefer the other.
Thanks, I never smoke. I wouldn't like it, and a woman's first duty in life is to a dressmaker, isn't it? What the second duty is, no one has yet discovered.
You have come here to sell me Robert Chiltern's letter, haven't you?
I offer it to you on conditions. How did you guess that?
Because you haven't mentioned the subject. Have you got it with you?
Oh no. A well-made dress has no pockets.
What is your price for it?
Oh, how absurdly English you are. The English think that a checkbook can solve every problem in life. My dear Arthur, I have very much more money than you have, and quite as much as Robert Chiltern has got a hold of. Money is not what I want.
What do you want then, Mrs. Cheverly?
Why don't you call me Laura?
I don't like the name.
You used to adore it.
Yes, that's why.
Arthur, you loved me once
Yes,
and asked me to be your wife.
that was the natural result of my loving you.
And you threw me over because you saw, or said you saw, poor old Lord Mortlake trying to have a violent flirtation with me in the conservatory at Tenby. You know, Lord Mortlake with the pipe in the conservatory.
I am under the impression that my lawyer settled that matter with you on certain terms dictated by yourself.
At the time I was poor, you were rich.
Quite so. That is why you pretended to love me.
Poor old Lord Mortlake, who had only two topics of conversation, his gout and his wife. I never could quite make out which of the two he was talking about. He used the most horrible language about them both. Well, you were silly, Arthur. Why, Lord Mortlake has never anything more to me than an amusement. One of those utterly tedious amusements one only finds at an English country house on an English country day. I don't think anyone at all morally responsible was for what she or he does at an English country house.
Yes, I know lots of people think that.
I loved you, Arthur.
My dear Mrs. Cheverly, you have always been far too clever to know anything about love.
I did love you. You loved me. You know you loved me. And love is a very wonderful thing. I suppose that when a man has once loved a woman, he will do anything for her except continue to love her.
Yes, accept that.
I am tired of living abroad. I want to come back to London. I want to have a charming house here. I want to have a salon. If one could only teach the English how to talk and the Irish how to listen, society here would be quite civilized. Besides, I have arrived at the romantic stage. When I saw you last night at Chiltern's, I knew you were the only person I had ever cared for, if I ever cared for anybody, Arthur. And so, on the morning of the day you marry me, I will give you Robert Chiltern's letter. That is my offer. I'll give it to you now, if you promise to marry me.
Now,
Tomorrow.
are you really serious?
Yes, quite serious.
I should make you a very bad husband.
Oh, I don't mind bad husbands. I've had two. They amused me immensely.
You mean that you amused yourself immensely, don't you?
What do you know about my married life?
Nothing, but I can read it like a book.
What book?
The Book of Numbers.
Do you think it is quite charming of you to be so rude to a woman in your own house?
In the case of very fascinating women, sex is a challenge, not a defense.
I suppose that is meant for a compliment. My dear Arthur, women are never disarmed by compliments. Men always are. That is the difference between the two sexes.
Women are never disarmed by anything, as far as I know them.
Then you are going to allow your greatest friend, Robert Chiltern, to be ruined, rather than marry someone who really has considerable attractions left. I thought you would have risen to some great height of self-sacrifice. I think you should, and the rest of your life you could spend in contemplating your own perfections.
Oh, I do that as it is. And self-sacrifice is a thing that should be put down by law. It is so demoralizing to the people for whom one sacrifices oneself. They always go to the bad.
As if anything could demoralize Robert Chiltern. You seem to forget that I know his real character.
What you know about him is not his real character. It was an act of folly done in his youth. Dishonorable, I admit. Shameful, I admit. Unworthy of him, I admit. And therefore, not his true character.
How you men stand up for each other.
How you women war against each other.
I only war against one woman. Against Gertrude Chiltern. I hate her. I hate her now more than ever.
Because you have brought a real tragedy into her life, I suppose.
Oh, there's only one real tragedy in a woman's life. The fact that her past is always her lover and her future invariably her husband.
Lady Chiltern knows nothing of the kind of life to which you are alluding.
A woman whose size in gloves is 7 3/4 knows nothing much about anything. You know, Gertrude has always worn 7 3/4. That is one of the reasons why there was never any moral sympathy between us. Well, Arthur, I suppose this romantic interview may be regarded as at an end. You admit it was romantic, don't you? For the privilege of being your wife, I was ready to surrender a great prize, the climax of my diplomatic career. You decline. Very well. If Sir Robert doesn't uphold my Argentine scheme, I expose him. Voila tout.
You mustn't do that. It would be vile, horrible, infamous.
Oh, don't use big words. I mean so little. Commercial transaction, that is all. There is no good mixing up sentimentality into it. I offered to sell Robert Chiltern a simple thing. If he won't pay me my price, he will have to pay the world a greater price. There is no more to be said. I must go. Goodbye. Won't you shake hands?
With you? No. Your transaction with Robert Chiltern may pass as a loathsome commercial transaction of a loathsome commercial age, but you seem to have forgotten that you came here tonight to talk of love. You, whose lips desecrated the word love, you, to whom the thing is a book closely sealed, went this afternoon to the house of one of the most noble and gentle women in the world to degrade her husband in her eyes, to try and kill her love for him, to put poison in her heart and bitterness in her life, to break her idol, and it may be spoil her soul. That I cannot forgive you. That was horrible. For that there can be no forgiveness.
Arthur, you are unjust to me. Gertrude at all. I had no idea of doing anything of the kind when I entered. Jewel I lost somewhere last night had been found by the Chilterns. If you don't believe me, you can ask Lady Markby. She'll tell you it's true. The scene that occurred happened after Lady Markby had left, and was really forced on me by Gertrude's rudes and sneers. I called, oh, a little out of malice, if you like. But really, to ask if a diamond brooch of mine had been found, that was the origin of the whole thing.
A diamond snake brooch with a ruby?
Yes. How do you know?
Because it is found. In point of fact, I found it myself, and stupidly forgot to tell the butler anything about it as I was leaving. It is in this drawer. No, that one. This is the brooch, isn't it?
Yes, then. So glad to get it back. It was a present.
Won't you wear it?
Certainly. If you pin it in. I never knew it could be worn as a bracelet.
Really?
No, but it looks quite well on me as a bracelet, doesn't it?
Yes. Much better than when I saw it last.
When did you see it last?
Oh, 10 years ago, on Lady Berkshire, from whom you stole it.
What do you mean?
I mean that you stole that ornament from my cousin, Mary Berkshire, to whom I gave it when she was married. Suspicion fell on a wretched servant who was sent away in disgrace. I recognized it last night. I determined to say nothing about it till I had found the thief. I have found the thief now, and I have heard her own confession.
It is not true.
You know it is true. Why, thief is written across your face at this moment.
I will deny the whole affair from beginning to end. Say that I've never seen this wretched thing, that it was never in my possession.
The drawback of stealing a thing, Mrs. Cheveley, is that one never knows how wonderful the thing that one steals is. You can't get that bracelet off unless you know where the spring is, and I see you don't know where the spring is. It is rather difficult to find.
You brute, you coward.
Oh, don't use big words. They mean so little.
What are you going to do?
I am going to ring for my servant. He is an admirable servant, always comes in the moment one rings for him. When he comes, I will tell him to fetch the police.
Please. What for?
Tomorrow, the Berkshires will prosecute you. That is what the police are for.
Mrs. Cheverly is now in an agony of physical terror. Her face is distorted, her mouth awry. A mask has fallen from her. She, for the moment, is dreadful to look at. Don't do that. I'll do whatever you want. Anything in the world you want.
Give me Robert Chiltern's letter.
Oh, stop. Let me have time to think.
Give me Robert Chiltern's letter.
I've not got it with me. I will have to give it to you tomorrow.
You know you are lying. Give it to me at once.
Mrs. Cheverly pulls the letter out and hands it to him. He is horribly pale.
This is it.
Yes. Lord Goring takes the letter, examines it, and burns it with the lamp.
For so well-dressed a woman, Mrs. Cheveley, you have moments of admirable common sense. I congratulate.
Mrs. Cheverly catches sight of Lady Chiltern's letter, the cover of which is just showing from under the blotting book. Please, get me a glass of water.
Certainly.
Goes to the corner of the room and pours out a glass of water. While his back is turned, Mrs. Cheverly steals Lady Chiltern's letter. When Lord Goring returns the glass, she refuses it with a gesture. Thank you. Will you help me put on my cloak?
With pleasure.
Thanks. I'm going to harm Robert Chiltern again.
Fortunately, you have not the chance, Mrs. Cheverly.
Well, but if I had the chance, I wouldn't. On the contrary, I'm going to render him a great service.
I am charmed to hear it. It is a reformation.
Yes, I can't bear so upright a gentleman, so honourable an English gentleman, being so shamefully deceived, and so
Well,
I find that somehow Gertrude Chiltern's dying speech and confession has strayed into my pocket.
what do you mean?
I mean, that I'm going to send Chiltern the love letter his wife wrote you tonight.
Love letter?
I want you. I trust you. I'm coming to you, Gertrude.
You wretched woman, must you always be thieving? Give me back that letter. I'll take it from you by force. You shall not leave my room till I have got.
Rushes towards her, but Mrs. Chevelry puts her hand on the electric bell that is on the table. The bell sounds with shrill reverberations, and Phipps enters. Lord Goring merely rang that you should show me out. Good night, Lord Goring. Goes out, followed by Phipps. Her face is illuminated with evil triumph. There is joy in her eyes. Youth seems to have come back to her. The last glance is like a swift arrow. Lord Goring bites his lip, lights a cigarette. Fourth act. Scene. Same as Act 2. Lord Goring is standing by the fireplace with his hands in his pockets. He's looking rather bored.
It is a great nuisance. I can't find anyone in this house to talk to, and I'm full of interesting information. I feel like the latest edition of something or other.
Enter servant. Robert is still at the Foreign Office, my lord.
Lady Chiltern not down yet?
Her ladyship has not yet left her room. Miss Chiltern has just come in from riding.
Ah, that is something.
Lord Caversham has been waiting some time in the library from Sir Robert. I told him your lordship was here.
Thank you. Would you kindly tell him I've gone?
I shall do so, my lord. Exit servant.
Really, I don't want to meet my father 3 days running. It is a great deal too much excitement for any son. I hope to goodness he won't come up. Father should be neither seen nor heard. That is the only proper basis for family life. Mothers are different. Mothers are darlings.
Walter! What are you doing here? Wasting your time as usual, I suppose.
My dear father, when one pays a visit, it's for the purpose of wasting other people's time, not one's own.
Have you been thinking over what I spoke to you about last night?
I have been thinking about nothing else.
Engaged to be married yet?
Not yet, but I hope to be before lunchtime.
You can have till dinner time if it would be of any convenience to you.
Thanks awfully, but I think I'd sooner be engaged before lunch.
Never know when you're serious or not.
Neither do I, father.
I suppose you have read the Times this morning.
The Times? Certainly not. I only read the Morning Post. All that one should know about modern life is where the duchesses are. Anything else is quite demoralizing.
Do you mean to say that you've not read the Times leading article on Robert Chiltern's career?
Good heavens! No, what does it say?
What should it say, sir? Everything complimentary, of course. Chilton's speech last night on this Argentine canal scheme was one of the finest pieces of oratory ever delivered in the House since Canning.
Ah, never heard of Canning, never wanted to. And did Chiltern uphold the scheme?
Uphold it, sir! How little you know him! Why, he denounced it roundly, and the whole system of modern political finance. This speech is the turning point in his career, as the Times points out. You should read this article, sir. Sir Robert Chiltern, most rising of our young statesmen, brilliant orator, unblemishing career, well-known integrity of character, represents what is best in English public life. Noble contrast to the lax morality so common among foreign politicians. They will never say that of you, sir.
I sincerely hope not, Father. However, I am delighted at what you tell me about Robert. Thoroughly delighted. It shows he's got pluck.
He's got more than pluck, sir. He's got genius.
Ah, I prefer pluck. It's not so common nowadays as genius is.
I wish you would go into Parliament.
My dear Father, only people who look dull ever get into the House of Commons, and only people who are dull ever succeed there.
Why don't you try to do something useful in life?
I'm far too young.
I hate this affectation of you, sir. It is a great deal too prevalent nowadays.
Youth isn't an affectation. Youth is an art.
Why don't you propose to that pretty Miss Chiltern?
I'm of a very nervous disposition, especially in the morning.
I don't suppose there is the smallest chance of her accepting you.
I don't know how the betting stands today.
If she did accept you, she would be the prettiest fool in England.
That is just what I should like to marry. A thoroughly sensible wife would reduce me to a condition of absolute idiocy in less than 6 months.
You don't deserve her, sir.
My dear Father, if we men married the women we deserved, we should have a very bad time of it.
Enter Mabel Chiltern.
Oh, how do you do, Lord Caversham? I hope Lady Caversham is quite well.
Lady Caversham is as usual.
Good morning, Miss Mabel.
Taking no notice at
And
all
Lady
of
Caversham's
Lord...
bonnets. Are they at all better?
They have had a serious relapse, I am sorry to say.
Good morning, Miss Mabel.
I hope an operation will not be necessary.
If it is, we shall have to give Lady Caversham a narcotic. Otherwise, she would never consent to have a feather touched.
Good morning, Miss Mabel.
Oh, are you here? Of course you understand that after breaking your appointment, I am never going to speak to you again.
Oh, please don't say such a thing. You are the one person in London I really like to have listen to me.
Lord Goring, I never believe a single word that either you or I say to each other.
And you are quite right, my dear, quite right. As far as he is concerned, I mean.
Do you think you could possibly make your son behave a little better occasionally? Just as a change.
Oh, I regret to say, Miss Chiltern, that I have no influence at all over my son. I wish I had. If I had, I know what I would make him do.
I am afraid that he has one of those terribly weak natures that are not susceptible to influence.
He is a very heartless, very heartless.
It seems to me that I am a little in the way here.
It is very good for you to be in the way and to know what people say of you behind your back.
I don't like at all knowing what people say of me behind my back. It makes me far too conceited.
After that, my dear, I really must bid you good morning.
Oh, I hope you're not going to leave me all alone with Lord Goring, especially at such an early hour in the day.
I am afraid I can't take him with me to Downing Street. It is not the Prime Minister's day for seeing the unemployed.
Sands
People
with
who... Sorry, go
Mabel
ahead.
Chiltern takes up his hat and stick and goes out with a parting glare of indignation at Lord Goring.
People who don't keep their appointments in the park are horrid.
detestable.
I'm glad you admit it, but I wish you wouldn't look so pleased about it.
I can't help it. I always look pleased when I'm with you.
Then I suppose it is my duty to remain with you.
Of course it is.
Well, my duty is a thing I never do on principle. It always depresses me. So I am afraid I must leave you.
Please don't, Miss Mabel. I have something very particular to say to you.
Oh, is it a proposal?
Well, yes, it is. I'm bound to say it is.
I am so glad. That makes the second today.
The second today? What conceited ass has been impertinent enough to dare to propose to you before I had proposed to you?
Tommy Trafford, of course. It is one of Tommy's days for proposing. He always proposes on Tuesdays and Thursdays during the season.
You didn't accept him, I hope?
I make it a rule never to accept Tommy. That is why he goes on proposing. Of course, as you didn't turn up this morning, I very nearly said yes. It would have been an excellent lesson both for him and for you if I had. It would have taught you both better manners.
Oh, bother Tommy Trafford. Tommy is a silly little ass. I love you.
I know. And I think you might have mentioned it before. I am sure I have given you heaps of opportunities.
Mabel, do be serious. Please be serious.
Ah, that is the sort of thing a man always says to a girl before he has been married to her. He never says it afterwards.
Mabel, I have told you that I love you. Can't you love me a little in return?
You silly Arthur. If you knew anything about anything, which you don't, you would know that I adore you. Everyone in London knows it, except you. It is a public scandal the way I adore you. I have been going about for the last 6 months telling the whole of society that I adore you. I wonder you consent to have anything to say to me. I have no character left at all. At least I feel so happy that I'm quite sure I have no character left at all.
Dear, do you know I was awfully afraid of being refused?
But you have never been refused yet by anybody, have you, Arthur? I can't imagine anyone refusing you.
Of course, I'm not nearly good enough for you, Mabel.
I am so glad, darling. I was afraid you were.
And I'm a little over 30.
Dear, you look weeks younger than that.
How sweet of you to say so. And it is only fair to tell you frankly that I am fearfully extravagant.
But so am I, Arthur, so we're sure to agree. And now I must go and see Gertrude.
Must you really?
Yes.
Then do tell her I want to talk to her particularly. I have been waiting here all the morning to see either her or...
Do you say you didn't come here expressly to propose to me?
No, that was a flash of genius.
You're first.
My last.
I am delighted to hear it. Now don't stir. I'll be back in 5 minutes. Don't fall into any temptations while I am away.
Dear Mabel, while you are away, there are none. It makes me horribly dependent on...
Enter Lady Chiltern.
I'm sorry, I'm out of sync. Give me a sec.
How pale you are looking, Gertrude. It is most becoming.
morning, Lord Goring.
Good morning, Lady Chiltern.
I shall be in the conservatory under the second palm tree on the left.
Second on the left?
Yes, the usual palm tree.
Blows a kiss to him, unobserved by Lady Chiltern, and goes out.
Lady Chiltern, I have a certain amount of very good news to tell you. Mrs. Cheveley gave me up Robert's letter last night, and I burned it. Robert is safe.
Oh, safe. Oh, I'm so glad of that. What a good friend you are to him. To us.
There is only one person now that could be said to be in any danger.
Who is that?
Yourself.
I? In danger? What do you mean?
Danger is too great a word. It is a word I should not have used, but I admit I have something to tell you that may distress you, that terribly distresses me. Yesterday evening you wrote me a very beautiful, womanly letter asking me for my help. You wrote to me as one of your oldest friends, one of your husband's oldest friends. Mrs. Cheveley stole that letter from my rooms.
Well, what use is it to her? Why should she not have it?
Lady Chiltern, I will be quite frank with you. Mrs. Cheveley puts a certain construction on that letter and proposes to send it to your husband.
But what construction could she put on it? Oh, not that, not that. If I am in trouble and wanting your help, trusting you, propose to come to you, that you may advise me, assist me. Oh, are there a woman so horrible as that? And she proposes to send it to my husband? Tell me what happened. Tell me all that happened.
Mrs. Cheveley was concealed in a room adjoining my library without my knowledge. I thought that the person who was waiting in that room to see me was yourself. Robert came in unexpectedly. A chair or something fell in the room. He forced his way in and he discovered her. We had a terrible scene. I still thought it was you. He left me in anger. At the end of everything, Mrs. Cheveley got possession of your letter. She stole it. When or how, I don't know.
At what hour did this happen?
At 10:30. And now I propose that we tell Robert the whole thing at once.
You want me to tell Robert, the woman you expected was not Mrs. Cheveley, but myself? That it was I whom you thought was concealed in a room in your house at 10:30 at night? You want me to tell him that?
I think it is better that he should know the exact truth.
Oh, I couldn't. I couldn't.
May I do it?
No.
You are wrong, Lady Chiltern.
No. The letter must be intercepted. That is all. But how can I do it? Letters arrive for him every moment of the day. His secretaries open them and hand them to him. I dare not ask the servants to bring me his letters. It would be impossible. Why don't you tell me what to do?
Pray be calm, Lady Chiltern, and answer the questions I am going to put to you. You said his secretaries open his letter.
Yes.
Who is with him today? Mr. Trafford, isn't it?
No, Mr. Montford, I think.
You can trust him?
Oh, how do I know?
He would do what you asked him, wouldn't he?
I think so.
Your letter was on pink paper. He could recognize it without reading it, couldn't he? By the color.
I suppose so.
Is he in the house now?
Yes.
Then I will go and see him myself and tell him that a certain letter written on pink paper is to be forwarded to Robert today, and that at all costs it must not reach him. Oh, Robert is coming upstairs with the letter in his hand. It has reached him already.
You have saved his life. What have you done with mine?
Enter Sir Robert Chiltern. He has the letter in his hand and is reading it. He comes toward his wife, not noticing Lord Goring's presence.
I want you. I trust you. I am coming to you, Gertrude. Oh, my love, is it true? Do you indeed trust me and want me? If so, it was for me to come to you, not for you to write of coming to me. This letter of yours, Gertrude, makes me feel that nothing in the world may hurt me now. Do you want me, Gertrude?
Lord Goring, unseen by Sir Robert Chiltern, makes an imploring sign to Lady Chiltern to accept the situation and Sir Robert's error.
Yes.
You trust me, Gertrude.
Yes.
Ah, why did you not add that you love me?
Because I love you.
Gertrude, you don't know what I feel. When Montfort passed me your letter across the table and he opened it by mistake, I suppose, without looking at the handwriting on the envelope, and I read it. Oh, I did not care for what disgrace or punishment was in store for me. I thought you loved me still.
There's no disgrace in store for you, nor any public shame. Mrs. Cheverly has handed over to Lord Goring the document that was in her possession, and he has destroyed it.
Are you sure of this, Gertrude?
Yes, Lord Goring has just told me.
Then I am safe. Oh, what a wonderful thing to be safe. For 2 days I have been in terror and I am safe now. How did Arthur destroy my letter? Tell me.
He burned it.
I wish I had seen that one sin of my youth burning to ashes. How many men there are in modern life would like to see the past burning to white ashes before them. Is Arthur still here?
Yes, he is in the conservatory.
I am so glad now. I made that speech in the night. The house so glad. I made it thinking that public disgrace might be the result, but it has not been so.
Public honor has been the result.
I think so. I feel so, almost. Though I am safe from detection, although every proof against me is I suppose, Gertrude, I suppose I should retire from public life.
Oh, yes, Robert, you should do that. It is your duty to do that.
There's much to surrender.
No, it will be much to gain.
And would you be happy living somewhere alone with me? Abroad, perhaps, or in a country away from London, away from public life? You would have no regrets.
Oh, none, Robert.
And your ambition for me, you used to be ambitious for me.
My ambition. I have none now, but that we two may love each other. It was your ambition that led you astray. Let us not talk about ambition.
Lord Goring returns from the conservatory, looking very pleased with himself and with an entirely new buttonhole that someone has made for him.
Arthur, I have to thank you for what you have done for me. I don't know how I can repay you.
My dear fellow, I'll tell you at once. At the present moment, under the usual palm tree, I mean, in the conservatory.
Enter Mason.
Lord Caversham.
That admirable father of mine really makes a habit of turning up at the wrong moment. It is very heartless of him, very heartless indeed.
Enter Lord Caversham. Mason goes out.
Good morning, Lady Chiltern. Warmest congratulations to you, Chiltern, on your brilliant speech last night. I have just left the Prime Minister, and you are to have the vacant seat in the cabinet.
A seat in the cabinet?
Yes, here's the Prime Minister's letter.
Seat in the cabinet?
Certainly, and you well deserve it, too. You've got what we want so much in political life nowadays: high character, high moral tone, high principles. Everything that you've not got, sir, and never will have.
I don't like principles, Father. I prefer prejudices.
Robert Chiltern is on the brink of accepting the Prime Minister's offer. eyes. He then realizes that it is impossible.
I cannot accept this offer, Lord Caversham. I've made up my mind to decline it.
Decline it, sir.
My intention is to retire at once from public life.
Decline a seat in the cabinet and retire from public life? I've never heard such a damned nonsense in the whole course of my existence. I beg your pardon, Lady Chiltern. Chiltern, I beg your pardon. Don't grin like that, sir.
No, father.
Lady Chiltern, you're a sensible woman. The most sensible woman in London. The most sensible woman I know. Will you kindly prevent your husband from making such a... from taking such... Will you kindly do that, Lady Chiltern?
I think my husband is right in his determination, Lord Caversham. I approve of it.
You approve it? Good heavens!
I admire him for it. I admired him immensely for it, and never admired him so much before. He's finer than even I thought him. You will go and write your letter to the Prime Minister now, will you? Don't hesitate about it, Robert.
I suppose I had better write it at once. Such offers are not repeated. I will ask you to excuse me a moment, Lord Caversham.
I may come with you, Robert, may I not?
Yes, Gertrude.
Lady Chiltern goes out with him.
What is the matter with this family? Something's wrong here, eh? Idiocy. Hereditary, I suppose. Both of them, too. Wife as well as husband. Very sad. Very sad indeed. And they are not an old family. Can't understand it.
It is not idiocy, father, I assure you.
What is it then, sir?
Well, it is what is called nowadays a high moral tone, father. That is all.
I hate these newfangled names. Same thing as we used to call idiocy 50 years ago. I shan't stay in this house any longer.
Oh, just go in here for a moment, father. Third palm tree to the left, the usual palm tree.
What's that?
I beg your pardon, father. I forgot. The conservatory, father, the conservatory. There's someone there I want you to talk
What about, sir?
about me, father.
Not a subject on which much eloquence is possible.
No, father, but the lady is like me. She doesn't care much for eloquence in others. She thinks it a little loud.
Lord Caversham goes out into the conservatory. Lady Chiltern enters.
Lady Chiltern, why are you playing Mrs. Cheveley's cards?
I don't understand you.
Mrs. Cheveley made an attempt to ruin your husband, either to drive him from public life or make him adopt a dishonorable position. From the latter tragedy, you saved him. The former, you are now thrusting on him. Why should you do him the wrong Mrs. Cheveley tried to do and failed?
Lord Goring?
Lady Chiltern, allow me. You wrote a letter last night in which you said that you trusted me and wanted my help. Now is the moment when you really want my help. Now is the time when you have got to trust me, to trust in my counsel and judgment. You love Robert. Do you want to kill his love for you? What sort of existence will he have if you rob him of the fruits of his ambition, if you take from him the splendor of a great political career, if you close the doors of public life against him, if you condemn him to sterile failure, he who was made for triumph and success? Women are not meant to judge us, but to forgive us when we need forgiveness. Pardon, not punishment, is their mission. Why should you scourge him with rods for a sin done in his youth, before he knew you, before he knew himself? A man's life is of more value than a woman's, he said douchily. It has larger issues, wider scope, greater ambitions. A woman's life revolves in the curves of emotion. It is upon lines of intellect that a man's life progresses. Don't make any terrible mistake, Lady Chiltern. A woman who can keep a man's love and love him in return has done all the world wants of women, or should want of them.
But it is my husband himself who wishes to retire from public life. He feels it is his duty. It was he who first said so.
Pardon me, Lady Chiltern, I was just vomiting in my mouth a little bit. Rather than lose your love, Robert would do anything, wreck his whole career as he is on the brink of doing now. He is making for you a terrible sacrifice. Take my advice, Lady Chiltern, and do not accept a sacrifice so great. If you do, you will live to repent it bitterly. We men and women are not made to accept such sacrifices from each other. We are not worthy of them. Besides, Robert has been punished enough.
We have both been punished. I set him up too high.
Do not, for that reason, set him down now too low. If he has fallen from his altar, do not thrust him into the mire. Failure to Robert would be the very mire of shame. Power is his passion. He would lose everything, even his power to feel love. Your husband's life is, at this moment, in your hands. Your husband's love is in your hands. Don't mar both for him. Everybody knows English men can't get off without megalomania.
Enter Sir Robert Chiltern.
Yeah, sorry, I was having a bit of megalomania in the other room. Gertrude, here's the draft of my letter. Shall I read it to you?
Let me see it.
Robert hands her the letter. She reads it and then, with a gesture of passion, tears it up.
Oh, what are you doing?
I have been told that a man's life is of more value than a woman's. It has larger issues, wider scope, greater ambitions. Our lives revolve in its curves of emotions. It is upon lines of intellect that a man's life progresses. I have just learned this, and much else with it from Lord Goring. And I will not spoil your love for you, nor see you spoil it as a sacrifice to me. A useless sacrifice.
Oh, this is so fucking gross, guys. Gertrude, this apparently is a romantic moment. We should hug and not, like, feel bad.
You can forget. Men easily forget. And I
Not all men.
forgive. That is how women help the world in this period of time that this play takes place, I guess. I see that now.
Oh, my wife, apparently also property. Arthur, it seems that I am right to always be in your debt.
Oh dear no, Robert. Your debt is to Lady Chiltern, whom you absolutely do not deserve, nor do I. Not to me.
Hell yeah.
But how can you own a debt to your property? I mean, I owe you much. And now tell me what you were going to ask me just now as Lord Caversham came in.
Speaking of women and how they're property, Robert, you are your sister's guardian, and I want your consent to my marriage with her. That is...
Oh, have you got
Oh, I
3
am
goats?
so glad. I am so glad.
Thank you, Lady Chiltern.
My sister, to be your wife, I don't think you have enough goats or cows for this trade.
Yes. We don't speak in polite society of how many goats I have to my name, sir.
No. I'm sorry. I thought we were just doing it all screwy. I'm very sorry, but the thing is quite out of the question. I have to think of Maple's future happiness, and I don't think her happiness would be safe in your hands, or under her self-direction, for that matter. I cannot have her sacrificed.
Sacrificed, as though that were not a thing I spoke of women doing not 5 minutes ago?
Yes, utterly sacrificed. Loveless marriages are horrible. But there is one thing worse than an absolutely loveless marriage, a marriage in which there is love, but on one side only, faith, but on one side only, devotion, but on one side only, and in which the... Of the two hearts, one is sure to be broken.
But I love Mabel. No other woman has any place in my life or the House of Representatives.
Robert, if they love each other, why should they not be married? It is apparently the only way women can be worth anything right
Arthur cannot bring Mabel the love she deserves.
Oh, what reason have you for saying that?
Do you really require me to tell you?
Certainly I do. I can't have figured it out myself.
Fine. When I called on you yesterday evening, I found Mrs. Cheverly concealed in your rooms. It was between 10 and 11 o'clock at night. I do not wish to say anything more. Your relations with Miss Cheverly have, as I said to you last night, nothing whatsoever to do with me. I know you were engaged to be married to her once. The fascination she exercised over you seems to have returned. You spoke to me last night of her as a woman pure and stainless, a woman whom you respected and honored. That may be so, but I cannot give my sister's life into your hands. It would be wrong of me. It would be unjust, infamously unjust to her.
I have nothing more to say.
now. But I do.
I have.
Robert, it was not Mrs. Cheverly whom Lord Goring expected last night.
Not Mrs. Cheverly? Who was it then?
Lady Chiltern.
It was your own wife. Robert, yesterday afternoon, Lord Goring told me that if ever I was in trouble, I could come to him for help, as he was our oldest and best friend. Later on, after that terrible scene in this room, I wrote to him telling him that I trusted him, that I had need of him, and that I was coming to him for help and advice. Yes, that letter. I didn't go to Lord Goring's after all. I felt that it is from ourselves alone that help can come. Pride made me think that. Mrs. Cheverly went. She stole my letter and sent it anonymously to you this morning that you should think. Oh, Robert, I cannot tell you what she wished you to think.
What? Had I fallen so low in your eyes that you thought that even for a moment I could have doubted your goodness? Gertrude, Gertrude, you are to me the white image of all good things, and sin can never touch you. Arthur, you can go to Mabel. You have my best wishes. Oh, stop a moment. There is no name at the beginning of this letter. The brilliant Mrs. Cheverly does not seem to have noticed that. There should be a name.
Let me write yours. It is you that I trust and need, apparently. You and none else.
Well, really, Lady Chiltern, I think I should have back my own letter.
No, you shall have Mabel.
Well, I hope she hasn't changed her mind. It's nearly 20 minutes since I saw her.
Enter Mabel Chiltern and Lord Caversham, and lots of baggage about feminist theory.
Lord Goring, I think your father's conversation much more improving than yours. I am only going to talk to Lord Caversham in the future, and always under the usual palm tree, unless there's at least 5 goats.
Darling.
Megalomania! What does this mean? You don't mean to say that this charming, clever young lady has been so foolish to accept you?
Certainly, Father. And Chiltern's been wise enough to accept the seat in the cabinet.
I'm very glad to hear that, Chiltern. I congratulate you, sir. If the country doesn't go to the dogs or the radicals or the races, we shall have you prime minister someday.
Enter Mason.
Luncheon is on the table, my lady.
Mason goes out.
You'll stop to luncheon, Lord Caversham, won't you?
With pleasure. I'll drive you down to Dowling Street afterwards, Chiltern. You have a great future before you, a great future. I wish I could say the same to you, sir. But your career and hat will have to be entirely domestic.
Yes, Father. I prefer it domestic.
And don't we
Better.
know it? And if you don't make this young lady an ideal husband, I'll cut you off without a shilling.
An ideal husband. Oh, I don't think I should like that. It sounds like something in the next world.
What do you want him to be then, dear?
Well, he can be what he chooses. All I want is to be a member of a feminist pirate gang.
On my word, there's a good deal of common sense in that, Lady Chilton.
Aren't you coming in, Robert? We're about to toast to our new pirate gang.
Yes, there's going to be imperialism. It'll be wonderful. Marvelous.
Down in the patriarchy.
Is there that much imperialism in a pirate gang? I was to understand they were primarily democratic.
Eminent domain, lad. That's all the rage these days. Just look at the Americas.
Anybody knows that all the fashionable pirates are privateers now. That way we get a salary.
Well, I
Oh,
do
Yes.
have all of the
And we have
tyranny
to
of
remain above
childhood,
the
so
middle
clearly
class.
I am the tyrant here.
We got 3 lines till we can wrap this up, gang.
Gertrude, is it love you feel for me, or is it pity merely?
Well,
It is love, Robert. Love and only love.
Well,
For
you're a
both of
damn